kill it. I was meant to win. I am down and willing, so I will find a way. It took a minute, now it didn't happen right away. When it get hot in the kitchen, you decide to stay. That's how it winners made. Stick a fork in the hater on my dinner plate. I walk into the fire like it's just a bit of flame. I switch my style up, watch the money pile up. I'ma get rich or die trying.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Clydesdale Media podcast, where we interview athletes and coaches in the space to find out what's going on, get you some behind-the-scenes looks at what's happening around the CrossFit world. And today I have none other than one of the greatest coaches of all time in the fitness space, Justin Cotler. What's going on, Justin?
Hey, Scott. How are you, bud? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Good.
We're gonna have a casual conversation tonight. I want to apologize to the listeners. I had a little tech issue. The Rodecaster would not read my microphone for some reason tonight. But we got it fixed.
You sound lovely now, man. So
Thank you. I wish if my wife would only talk to me that way. So last time you were on, we talked about Ivy, your daughter, going through some stuff. So I did want to quickly get an update from you, see how she's doing. From Instagram, it looks like things are going well. I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, she's doing great. I think the tough thing about IgA nephropathy, which is the disease that she has, is that most of what's happening is internal. So it's really hard to know exactly how things are going, because externally she's amazing. You would have absolutely no idea. You know what I mean? She's crushing gymnastics. She's crushing life in general. But the numbers, that of the urinalysis are kind of all over the place, and it's still things that obviously we need to get under control. But the doctors are very hopeful, and you just have to try to stay as positive as you can, and we continue to do so. And but right now she's doing great, and so the goal is that hopefully the numbers, the protein in her urine keeps coming down, and you just you hope that things trend in the right direction. And if not, you kind of have to pivot. And crazy thing about this, though, is like there's no protocol for treatment. It's a rare disease. It's something that they're still studying to try to find a cure. It's something that they manage, and they throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and you hope something sticks. You know what I mean? So between medication and dietary changes and supplements, fish oil, things like that, we're trying to do all the things that we can do. But obviously, we're hopeful, and she's doing great right now. So just hoping that continues, and that we continue to get good news as we move forward.
That's great. And the rest of the family's doing well?
Yeah, everybody's doing good. It's always tough. I know when I go out of town for Ash with Ivy and Jax, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and but she's amazing, and things are going well. And obviously we had a great weekend, and I posted something today about just the crash of coming home, and you're in that competitive element for the weekend, and then all of a sudden you come and it's silence, and trying to, well, not silence with kids, but in general, just things are obviously a lot more quiet. So just trying to deal with that, and the kind of the crash after events and stuff. And so I'm in that mode for this week, and but soon I'll be out of it. So but yeah.
And that's got to be tough, because I know Ash is kind of taking on a lot, and when you come home you want to help her, but
Yes.
you're coming down off of this weekend.
Yeah.
And then your energy's low, and you're just trying to rally and keep up with the troops.
Yeah, thankfully it's not too bad traveling to Indianapolis. You know what I mean? It's a couple hours, so it's not too bad. It definitely is tougher overseas for sure, coming back. But yeah, I mean, I came back and we're pretty much back in the swing of things. So it's just in general, just the mindset of kind of allowing yourself a little bit of quiet, and then back to the daily grind of life and business and children and all that kind of stuff, which is cool, So yeah, so we're back, and had some time to reflect on some things, and obviously we'll talk more about that today.
So I want to dive into the WFP stuff, and then at the end of the show, kind of like CrossFit season,
Sure.
where you're at and how you're going to plan out the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And why the strategy you guys took this year was what you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So WFP was this last weekend. You did okay.
Yeah, we did okay.
Okay. And so you go to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
First of all, a lot of word out there that like the athletes got shuttled from the airport to the hotel. A lot of like little things that were done for the athletes. You as a coach, anything done for you, or were you with Alex, or how did that go for you?
Yeah, she got in a little earlier than I did. I flew in on Thursday, so I flew in the day before. And yeah, I think in general, just comparing, historically, right, things we've had to deal with. I just think we had a lot of access, which is nice. A lot of access in various ways, not just, having a dedicated spot to watch, but I think access in the sense of having our opinions heard, which I think is important. And that's not always been the case, depending on who kind of is in charge, right? I've talked several times about in the past on various podcasts about receiving the email from CrossFit telling coaches that you're spectators with limited access, and that always kind of felt like a gut shot. I always felt like that was disrespectful and whatnot. But in general, I would say the last few years we've definitely had more access in CrossFit too, and I felt like this was along those lines, like more access, opinions being able to be heard. We were able to kind of talk to the powers that be there about the events and our opinions of them, which I think is important. And in general, yeah, I thought overall, obviously, it was nice to see the athletes being taken care of. And in general, though, I just, I think going in, I wasn't sure what to expect, and obviously, I think I left, feeling very positive about the weekend.
I know it was on social media a lot. Some of their behind the scenes where like they all had lockers. They had a locker room. It had like a loofah in it. It had some snacks, things like that. And what it reminded me of is I saw a thing with Mark Cuban a few years back when he first bought the Dallas Mavericks and trying to get free agents to come to the Mavericks as opposed to other teams.
Right.
And he found that like, it's the little things that bring the free agents, not big things. It was like, he found like having a bathrobe in your locker was a big deal to the players, right? Not like expensive gifts or things like that. Just taking care of these little tiny things made all the difference in the world. And that's what it reminded me of when I saw the behind the scenes. It seemed like the WFP said, how can we do the little things just to take a little bit off the athletes and make them feel special?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, listen, I think the fact that you have Will, who's obviously a former very high level athlete, still a very high level athlete, right? I mean, just won the games not too long ago in the 35 to 39 division. But I think that helps, and having him be an OG there, and obviously Saxon as well. And I think that, there's some things that they understand coming from an athlete perspective. I think that, kind of sweetens the pot a little bit and make things a little bit more enjoyable. But listen, it's not to say that in the past, obviously, I mean, I remember I don't remember exactly which game and which sponsor. I think it was probably Noble, but I remember some of the bells and whistles with those locker rooms and the big things, So I definitely think, that we've seen that in the past, but I certainly think that, they did a really nice job of making the athletes feel special and feel heard. And I think that goes a long way when the athletes feel that type of respect, and that's great. but again, I want to be careful, that we don't pit kind of CrossFit versus WFP, because I don't think it's that way. And I think we've seen in the past, there have been a lot of instances, in CrossFit at the games and things like that, where that's also been the case. We've also seen it where it hasn't been the case. So, I think it's important that it's, we don't kind of pin the two against each other, because I feel like right now that's the thing that I'm having the most trouble with in the community right now, is I just kind of feel like people want to pin the two against each other. And I'm hopeful that we can open it up and everyone can work together to try to, push the CrossFit, the sport, the methodology, WFP. I mean, I'd like to see it all be successful, because it creates opportunities. It creates opportunities for athletes, for coaches. And that's not a bad thing when there are opportunities. So, that's my biggest takeaway, from the last several months, is just trying to, hoping that all these things can kind of work together.
So I'm going to take a slightly different approach.
Yeah.
And I'm not in one camp or the other.
Sure.
I like them both.
Yep.
But I think they should be pitted against each other, because that's how things get better. It's when you have competition, just like a good athlete wants to go up against another great athlete to see where they stand, to see how they can improve, to see where they can get better. If you don't have true competition, which CrossFit has not had for 20 years.
Yeah.
And left to its own devices without that competition, has not made significant improvements that have been clamored for years.
Sure. I agree with that. But I also think if you look in the history of sports with like two different leagues, say like AFL, NFL, ABA, NBA, when they actually merged and kind of came together eventually, that's when things exploded, right? So I think that what you say has merit, but I also think that ultimately, my fear is that, that ultimately they break each other down, so my hope is that that's not the case, and that what the WFP is, what CrossFit is, they can exist symbiotically, in my opinion. But I could be pie in the sky, right? Like I could have that view could be completely pie in the sky. So
I don't disagree with the inevitability of coming together.
Right.
But I think that someone had to tell CrossFit to shit or get off the pot.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
And because I've been in this media space for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
The entire time it's been, can't we do better? Can't we do better?
Right.
And I think what's frustrating to me is I look at a CrossFit game season this year that is harder to explain than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And then you have the WFP, which is coming in with a very streamlined, but if you are not a golf fan or a tennis fan or a Formula One fan, you don't really see the whole picture yet.
Right. Right. And I am a fan of all those. So I think I understand it a little bit better in the vision. But when I was watching your show the other day, with Jamie and Carolyn, obviously, and Jamie was kind of losing it a little bit. And I was on your side there saying like, no, this is, as far as the challengers, as far as this, as far as that, it's like, it makes sense in these other sports. It works. And so if we just give it a little bit of time, I think, that will work. But I understand, I can certainly understand, why people would be confused. But, I was thinking of it in the sense of like Q school for the PGA Tour, right? Like, yeah, it's really hard to qualify. It's really hard to go from being a qualifier to the PGA Tour. Some people do it 7 times, 8 times, 10 times. That means like 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years before they finally get there. Yeah, it's really, really, really hard. And that's, I kind of feel like, yeah, that's the way it should be. It should be really, really difficult to be, one of the top 20. Now, of course, the top 20 this year were chosen, and next year it's going to be different because
and
it's
that really muddies
earned.
the water.
Yeah.
The chosen 20 has muddied the water.
100%. But you know what? You got to give it a place to start. There has to be a place to start. And then, over the next few years, you're going to see like, yeah, okay, those 20 have deserved to be there. And now, okay, to get, now to get there is going to be really challenging. And it's going to be, and no pun intended, right, with the challenger division, but it's going to be very challenging. And I think it'll create great stories. Obviously one of the things that we can talk about today is, how do we make things, y'all coming off this weekend, how do we make things better and all that stuff. But yeah, I if you want to start at the beginning and go through, that'd be great. We've kind of taken a little bit of a tangential turn with the CrossFit versus WFP, which I don't want to spend the whole time about.
I want to finish this one thing, and then we'll go back to the beginning. And that is, it was just announced today, I think, a rule change that they came up with this week. And that is the highest finishing challenger, automatic bid to the next tour stop.
Yeah.
So Colton Mertens and Fisa Gaffi got an automatic bid to tour stop 2. Because they were the highest finishing challenger in this. And I like that rule.
I saw that. I like it as well.
Earns.
Yeah.
As long as it's still earned.
And I just kind of laugh because I already saw a couple of responses like, oh, we're just making up rules as we go. And meanwhile, the last chance qualifier just came out yesterday. So it's like, I'm just laughing because it's like, no matter where you look in this space right now, it just seems like things are just kind of made up and happening as we go, which is,
I have last chance qualifier, the last item.
Which is just funny because it's just the way things have been for so long. So it's not surprising that all of a sudden, there's a new rule there, but yeah, I'm fine with it. Obviously, like, Colton and Fee are obviously 2 of the top 20 right now. There's no doubt.
They're having great seasons.
They are
overall, not just WFP.
Correct.
So yeah, well earned for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective, let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
What was your experience like? Let's start with what were all the good things you saw, and what was your experience like this weekend?
Sure. Well, I think, first and foremost, I was very impressed with the venue. Super impressed with the setup. The warm-up space was absolutely incredible. The areas that they had for the pros, for the athletes in general, were very impressive. I thought that the communication was excellent, as far as the briefings and as far as, understanding when and where we needed to be. I thought all those things were done extremely well, extremely professional.
On that note, I heard it said that because they gave the workouts out ahead of time, it actually made the briefings easier because people had time to digest it and kind of figure it out on their own. And so it made the briefing go much quicker.
Yeah, I think also they did that video of kind of the flows of the workouts, where they had that kind of AI thing that was doing it, the arrow. But yeah, I thought that was great. I also thought that, they were listening to feedback in the briefings, and in some of the briefings, they changed a couple of the rules, or a few of the movement standards per se. One being where you couldn't re-rack the jerk. And I think they realized, like, hey, if we want to make this more exciting, like, it's better if we let them re-rack it, because ultimately what we were going to do anyway was people were going to jerk the bar, re-rack it, and then walk it into the rack, and they were just going to take a no rep for the first couple reps until they got to the number that they wanted to hit, and then would drop it. You know what I mean? So it ultimately made more sense that way. And I think they did a good job of listening, and I was very impressed overall. That's not to say obviously things were perfect, but without question, I thought for a first event, I thought they did a very good job. And I think in general, all of us came away feeling, very good about the event, feeling very good about the season. And if they can repeat this and obviously continue to level up, it's going to be, it's going to be great.
They said over and over again in the behind the scenes and different things that they wanted to hear feedback.
Yep.
So were there items that you thought needed to get better for Tour Stop 2 or next season after your experience this weekend? Yeah,
for sure. I spoke a little bit to them already, but I'll have another call or two to go through a few more things. But I think ultimately I thought the GHD standard was really shitty. You know, I'm not a fan of GHD sit-ups in competition in general. I think they're awful in competition. That's just me. It's my personal opinion. They're not fun to watch. People try to skirt the rules. It's very hard to, to uphold standards. I mean, I think we even saw it at Mayhem too, and then obviously in the semifinals, online semifinals, a bunch of people got penalized because they're trying to skirt the rules. Where's your hips, and is in the middle? Is it, depending on how somebody's body is made up, it changes where they can be, etc. Just
and
not
to be clear, and I want to, the only standard at WFP was touch the pad in front,
correct.
the floor behind.
Anything goes.
Anything went.
Right.
And I've said, and Jamie and I have this fight all the time, I'd rather have no standard than a standard that's not upheld.
Yes.
And at least it's a fair playing field.
Correct. So that I completely understand, and it takes the subjectivity out of it for the judges, which I know is a lot easier. The problem is then the workout, the way it's written and intended, you're not getting that stimulus at all, right? It just becomes who's the fastest at cheating GHDs, like ultimately, and that's not the intention of the workout. Like that workout
Carolyn
actually was pretty nasty.
So much.
What's that?
Carolyn hated that so much.
Oh, it's terrible. And I saw her videos, great. But yeah, we hated it. And Alex doesn't train them that way. So you had but honestly, 2 hours before the event, Alex, we're trying to learn that way, because the truth of the matter is if you don't, you're going to get smoked, because you see people doing them next to you and you're like, holy shit, that's just so fast. You can't compete doing them the way that they're supposed to be done, the way you learn them in a level 1. Like that's just, so my thing is, if we're not going to do them the way that we're taught and the way that, they're intended, then let's not do them at all. So ultimately that was one of the things, I think obviously some of the lighting stuff I enjoyed, but then we need to make sure timing wise that we're not, blacking out when people are still lifting. I mean, but those are all things that listen, it's a first go, like you're going to have some growing pains without question. You're going to have some growing pains. I think
I love the red light at the end of the, at the end of the time,
sure.
But if in a lifting event and you're allowed to go beyond the time, as long as you're off the rack, that you have to make an exception for
100%. Yes. 100%. And I don't think that, obviously they missed that, but I think more important than anything, and something that I think, and I think they will do this, because I think ultimately it lends itself well to to being televised, or kind of creating a reality series or something along. I mean, we've talked about it before. I've always been a proponent of trying to create a drive to survive feel, or a full swing, right? I think it's what it's called. And I think that we can't just treat these as fitness events, like the same old thing that we've always done, where you stream it and that's all you get, right? I think ultimately, we're going to need to go an extra mile. And that means, how cool would it have been to have the behind the scenes of going into the final event, where you've got the men's and the women's field really up for grabs, and you mic up those athletes and coaches, and you get all that, behind the scenes look of warm-ups and strategy talk and everything leading into that final event. And then kind of, having us in the stands mic'd up during the event, and then after, to kind of, bring that drama to everybody. To me, that's the type of stuff that they're going to need to do in the future. Like, we need to see those things. This needs to be, a story that people want to watch, that creates drama, because if it's just another fitness event, to me, I just don't know if that's going to attract more than just the niche, right? And we need this to attract the masses. And I think it can, because again, I always say these are superhumans doing superhuman things, and people love to watch that. It's inspiring. And ultimately, if you can create those stories, I think that that's going to give you a leg up on everything else. So I'm hoping that that's something that's created in the future.
Well, I'm a massive Full Swing fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched more Masters this year than I have because of that. But they had a great final event. That ending on those lunges, double overhead lunges, made for great drama.
Yep.
But if you added mics
Right.
to the people that risked it and didn't make it, and the amount of drama that would be added to that would be insane.
Right. Correct. And I mean, just thinking about the warm-ups prior to, and the things that Alex and I are talking about, and you can see the tension. And I mean, obviously she had a lead going into the final event, but it wasn't a comfortable lead, right? I mean, she ended up winning by 50 points, but that doesn't tell the true story of the weekend. I mean, it was up for grabs, right? Like, she had to beat Amy. She had, Laura was stalking. And obviously when Laura Horvath is stalking, I mean, you think, oh shit, she's got a shot. Right. And there were still even other people that could have gotten in the mix if something had happened, like what happened to Jeff had happened to Alex, right? If she drops the dumbbell and all of a sudden, she comes in 15th, 16th, 17th, she wouldn't have won. So people would be interested in that. I think people would be interested in kind of what we were talking about prior to, and what the other athletes and their coaches are talking about. I think people love that stuff. They love the insight. I also think it helps them and gives them insight into their training, into especially for athletes, young athletes that are just getting into competing, and coaches who are trying to, kind of level up and get to the level of coaching elite athletes. I'm sure they'd be interested in kind of seeing how we're prepping the athletes, or talking all that stuff, the mental side, the physical side, the emotional side, because all of it's a part of it. And to me, it just makes things so much more exciting.
So let me ask you this question then.
Sure.
As someone who is well ingrained in the space, do you think we have enough athletes that would be willing to be mic'd up in those situations? And because if they're not athletes in that final event, you don't look good.
Yeah, but
and that's what makes the Full Swing like so good is there are golfers that shit the bed.
Yeah.
And they still are willing to go on camera and talk about shitting the bed.
Scott, if our athletes are not willing to do that, then I mean, this is going to be harsh, then we shouldn't allow them to compete in this. Here's the deal. We aren't the NFL. We aren't the NBA. We aren't Major League Baseball. There's no guarantee this sport's around in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Like, if they don't have that understanding that, like, they want to be athletes and make money, if you don't have the understanding that the way to do that is to build a bigger following with more spectators and more money and all those things, if you don't do that stuff, then you don't deserve to compete, in my opinion. Like, everyone should be willing to bend over backwards to do whatever we have to do to drive the sport. And if people don't understand that, then they need to get the hell out of the way and allow people that do understand that, because there's not going to be a sport for us to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's the bottom line. Like, we're nowhere near saying, oh no, don't right now. No, please don't. No, that's not the way it is. You need to understand that, like, the media side of things right now, and we're in the 21st century, like that's the way this thing takes off, bottom line.
I can't tell you how many people I have had trouble getting on this show because we do it live.
Yeah, but okay, that's different in the sense of you're asking questions and they're responding. Like, this is different. Like, this is different in the sense of, people are you're just living, you're just being candid, right? Like, it's not like you're asking a question and they're being put on the spot, or, I think people sometimes aren't great on the mic, but I mean,
it's touching the people that are rooting for you. Like, it's a way to have a touch point with them.
It has to.
And that builds your brand, which helps build the sport. Like, I don't think enough of the athletes see the long-term picture.
And if it's not miking up the athlete per se, it's having the cameras back there. You can mic up the coaches. You could put microphones on the floor. There's ways to do it. Like, they do it, right? I mean, there's ways to figure it out. There's no question that we can do it. And I would be exploring all of those options, if I was in charge of media for WFP. Like, to me,
Well,
we've
I'm
got
in
to we've
full
got to
agreement
create
with
the
you.
stories.
Just,
What's
just
that?
I'm in full agreement with you.
Okay.
Like, I think
Yeah.
it needs to be done.
Yes.
That's the one hurdle I see.
Yeah. Well, don't allow it to be a hurdle. That's it. Have people sign shit. Listen, when we go to Rogue and they want to use everybody's name, image, and likeness, you sign, a contract. Like, they've been using Alex's name, image, and likeness on that commercial on YouTube that I know everybody's seen, where she's doing a deadlift. I've seen it 5,000 times. She doesn't make a dime from that. Okay. But she signed on the dotted line that says they can use it. So they use it. Like, that's the way it is. That's what I would do. I'd be like, listen, we're creating a reality series to package, to take to Netflix or to take to Amazon Prime or to take to Red Bull TV. And we're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this. Please sign. And if you don't want to sign, you won't compete. Like, that's the way it is. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, people have to understand that we are in no position to make demands or to be cavalier about, helping the media get what they need to get.
Do you think that the people that you've talked to at WFP are inclined to do something like this?
I think so. I think they're inclined to do whatever it takes to be successful. Obviously within reason, but I believe that they understand that, yes, that's something that would be a good move, and something that ultimately, when you look at the niche sports that have blown up, from UFC to, I'm not going to say F1's a niche sport per se. I mean, obviously it was big prior to, but compared to where it is now after Drive to Survive, I mean, just the proof is in the pudding. The Tour de France, same thing, with that reality show. And there's so many cases now that, so many instances and examples that we see of sports that have gone to the next level in popularity because of a reality series.
Yeah, I think the golden ticket is, if you can get on Netflix as a niche sport, you got a shot.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Any of the big streaming services, though, it's a Netflix or Amazon Prime, any of those are pretty good, but obviously Netflix is gold standard.
Yeah, and they were the first to do it. I mean, they're the
Mhm.
ones that have Full Swing and Drive to
Mhm.
Survive and the Tour de France one, and
Mhm.
like, they're just killing it, and their production is
Sprint.
so
Is it called
good.
Sprint? I love that one. The one with the sprinters, the athletes, the Olympic sprinters, Noah
I have
Lyles and
not
all that
seen
stuff.
that one.
Oh, it's so good. It's great.
When I
Yeah.
finish Full Swing, I'll jump into that one.
It's really good. Yep.
So you had a great weekend. Alex ends up winning the first tour stop.
Yeah.
You and we've been talking for 5 years now,
Yeah.
back and forth. You have told me over and over again that she has all the tools,
Yeah.
and just putting them together.
Yeah.
This is probably her biggest win with the field she went up against.
Oh, 100%. It's the best field in the sport right now, minus Tia Haley, but yeah, in
and
general.
to win by 50.
Yeah. Right.
Do you see it coming together?
Yes. Not where we're going to be, but yes. Still things that I would say, I've always talked about creating a bulletproof athlete, right? Where programming doesn't matter. And I think we're getting closer to that. We're not there yet. But you can see, historically, right, that first event, which had two of her quote unquote weaknesses, running and snatching, in it, and her ability to stay in the mix and finish sixth. That was a workout, I would say, historically, that she finishes probably somewhere in the middle of the pack, probably right around 15th to 20th. And now being able to finish there is huge. Her worst finish of the weekend was that GHD workout, and that simply was because of the GHD standard. She's just not super fast at that standard. But that's a handstand walk event that in the past, again, would be a huge challenge for her. And that's getting much better. So the things that we know that or that we knew we needed to get better at, the things that we've been prioritizing, it's really nice to see those things paying off, right? To see those things improving and to see the progression. But more than anything, I would say just her composure in that final event where we knew exactly what we needed to do and there was no panic. There was absolutely no drama from her. Like, she was steady as a rock. She finished third in the event. She was in control the entire time. The overhead walking lunges is not her favorite movement, but we've gotten it to the stage where she feels confident. She felt confident in those 25-foot sections. She did exactly what she did in practice, and it was just afterwards, I was like, you made it. Like, I wasn't losing my mind, in the final event. Like, normally I'm losing my mind. I wasn't losing my mind. You made it very stressless for me in that final event. I mean, I watched her the whole time and she just was steady Betty. She finished third in the event and she didn't need to try to win, but she knew exactly where she was looking around. There's Amy, there's Laura. I know where I need to be. Let me just finish and not create any drama here. And it was really beautiful to watch, to be honest with you. And I think things are moving in a direction that is kind of what I was hoping for and expected a few years ago. And to see it happening is just awesome.
Lynn says, I didn't hear Cotler scream once.
I screamed once. I screamed in the first event when she came in and she passed Laura and Emma on the run. I was losing my mind up there a little bit, just because of, the fact that we just put so much time into running. We've been working so hard on it. And the last few months, I feel like we've really dialed in on a program and stuff that we really like, and it's paying off, which is awesome.
So now we get into the storylines of, like, now you have 1,000 points, right? Is it 1,000 or 500? 500. Okay. 500 points. And you're moving on to tour stop 2.
Yeah.
It would take an epic collapse for her not to qualify for Copenhagen.
Yeah, that she's going to qualify for Copenhagen. At this point in time, right? Like, our goal is to win. So you to win the whole thing. So which I'm sure there are several people who have that same goal. But we've put ourselves in the best position of anyone at this point to win. And now I think the key is just doing all the things that we need to do to manage the season to put us in the best position to win. And that's to say that our goal is to win the WFP and our goal is to win the CrossFit Games. So it's both. So, those kind of scratch each other's back, because the beautiful thing is that your preparation is, for the games is the same as our preparation for WFP. I mean, we're preparing the same way, with the intention and the hope and the goal of winning.
So this kind of leads to my next question, and it's a question by the Barbell Spin. How many times should athletes be expected to compete in a calendar year?
That's a great question. And obviously that's one of the reasons why we did not do online semis. That was the big reason why we didn't do online semis, was looking at the season and saying, okay, how can we space the season in a way that puts her in the best position to succeed and stay healthy? And the one weekend or back-to-back weekend that we looked at was online semis into WFP 1. And what we said was, we made an agreement that we were going to try to prioritize in-person events, and that would be where we are able to display her fitness. Online, just to us, it leaves too much for interpretation. And we've seen that happen now with several women who obviously have lost their qualifying positions. And I guarantee that those women, if it was in person, would not have lost those qualifying positions. And so ultimately, I know there are some that agree with us and some that won't, and some that'll criticize us and some that won't. But we felt very comfortable saying, okay, we're going to bypass online semis. We're going to focus on WFP and on NorCal. And those are the best opportunities for us to achieve our goals, which is one, to win the WFP. So we put ourselves in a really good position winning, and then go to NorCal and qualify out of NorCal to get to the CrossFit Games. I think with Spin's question specifically is I'm not sure that we know that yet. I think that this season is almost it's a kind of like a test case, like we're going to find out what's possible. And I think at that point, we'll be able to adjust moving forward. So we're lucky in a sense that Alex is 23, right? I mean, I think people forget she's still only 23 years old. So we're still kind of learning those things. So the way that I looked at the season was, okay, we got WFP. A month later, we've got NorCal. NorCal is local too. So it's great for us. Same time zone, very short flight. There's not a ton of issues with travel, right? Then we don't have until the games. So that's a couple of months, which is fantastic. It gets a little bit hairy at the end of August going into, or the games going into Mesa, simply because the games are generally more taxing than any other competition during the year, 10 to 15 events. And usually, I'll give Alex a full month off. So, will we be compromised a little bit going into Mesa? Possibly, but I still plan on giving her, at least a week or two off after the games, and then prepping for Mesa. And then we don't have anything until Rogue. So we've got another few months. And then from Rogue, there's a good possibility she's just going to stay in Europe for that period of time between Rogue and Copenhagen. Now, again, is this the correct way to do it? I'm not sure. This is what we think right now is the optimal way. So that's in person, right? That's part of the reason why she also didn't compete earlier in the year, to be perfectly honest, right? Like people at Wodapalooza, et cetera. She had a little bit of an injury, but in general, like when we looked at Wodapalooza, it was like, I don't know. It's just, we want to have that time to be able to train and prepare and so WFP, NorCal, the games, Mesa, Rogue, Copenhagen. So we're looking at 6 events. Do I think 6 events in a 7-month span is a lot? Yeah, it definitely is. Do I think it's possible? Absolutely. I think it's possible. And I also think as we move forward in the future of the sport, especially if we're going to create a season, right? Which I have always been a fan of, whether it was CrossFit putting it on, whether it's WFP. I've always been a fan of moving more towards having a season like the ATP tour, like the PGA tour, that has multiple, tiered events during the year where you can create points and then you get that bonus at the end of the year. And I've always been a fan of, like, I love the games, obviously, but I'd love for the games to be maybe one of 3 Grand Slam events during the year. And, again, I know a lot of people will say blasphemy, but to me, it's part of evolution, and to me, the evolution of the sport, I'm not devaluing the games. I think again, I love CrossFit. I owned an affiliate for 10 years. I've devoted my life to introducing people to CrossFit. But I think where we are in the sport now, I think that for the athletes to succeed and for this to ultimately become something that's sustainable, we have to have a real season, and we have to have an opportunity for people to see their favorite athletes more than once and compete together in the best fields more than once. And we see that in golf, and we see that in tennis, specifically in Grand Slam events, and sometimes in the the tour championship and obviously in golf and some of those, kind of really high level events, Dubai and Miami, et cetera. And I think we can do that in this. Is it going to be perfect right away? Absolutely not. Is it going to take some time? For sure. But I do think that it's doable. And I think this is the first season we're going to see, athletes kind of step out of their comfort zone of doing 1 or 2 competitions a year. And I'm interested to see what happens.
I do need to apologize. I misspoke. Alex is a pro. She goes to Copenhagen regardless of what happens in the first 2 events. And I knew that. I don't know why it slipped my mind when I asked that question, but thank you for the reminder. So so you and Alex sit down, you come up with this plan.
Mm-hmm.
You're really putting all of your game season eggs in one basket.
Yeah, but
with 2 openings.
So what? Isn't that the way it's always been? Think about regionals. Think about semis the last several years. You get one freaking shot, and then they throw the last chance qualifier.
But here's was a little bigger. I mean, you had 5 spots or 10 spots, or
not back in the day. You had 3. You had 3 spots. I mean, I'm an OG, man. I was around where you had 3 spots, and you went to regionals, Northeast regionals.
And my question,
yeah.
My question is, you are that confident in your ability that 2 spots is fine?
100%. Yes.
Okay.
Without question. If I wasn't, we would have never done it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I'm not a fan of all these chances too. You've seen people have 3 and 4 chances to make the games. I think it's absurd. I like you get 1 shot, man. That was the deal. Like, that's the way it was last year. Yes, I understand it was 5 spots, but still, or 8 spots or 9 spots, whatever the hell it was. But a couple of years ago, I mean, in the past, you get a couple spots and you get 1 shot. You got to go and you got to do the damn thing. And yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Scott, we're not really thinking about anything other than winning. Like, we're going there to win. We're not going there to do anything else but win. So, yeah.
I wanted you to say that, because that is the mindset of a champion, right? Like,
yeah.
To you, if it was 1 spot, you'd still take your shot.
100%. If it would have been 1 spot, we'd be going and just doing that. Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
And listen, she may not. I mean, anything can happen. You know what I mean? Like, something could happen. But at the end of the day, like, Alex and I both feel confident enough to go and earn her spot there. And we feel like that's the best way for her path to the games, that this is what made the most sense. It made the most sense in the way that, to balance the season, taking all things into consideration, taking WFP into consideration, taking the games into consideration, which she really wants to do both seasons. And if we're going to take both into consideration and give both, the amount of respect that both deserved, then, this is the decision we made. And, I stand by it, and whether it works or not, we'll see. But regardless of whether it works or not, I'm still going to stand by it, because that's what we're doing.
We've been friends for a while, and one of the things you've always said about Alex is that, like, as soon as her mind gets to where it needs to be and she knows she's the big dog,
yeah,
like, that's going to be big. And so the other reason I asked that question is, you have all the confidence in the world in her. Are we to the point where Alex has all that confidence in herself?
I think that I've seen a switch in the last few months. I think I've seen a change in just belief and approach. I've seen that's not to say, obviously, that I think athletes in general, right? They always have doubts. They always question, they always have fears, and that's just human nature. But I think without a doubt, this past weekend in, arguably the best field that we've seen together, right, in a long time, she was pretty fantastic. And I feel like she felt at the end like that's that's exactly where she belonged. Like, because I talked to her afterwards and I said, it's not an easy thing to do to win, I mean, it's really not, it's not easy. And she said it just felt right. And to me, that's a phenomenal answer. Like, how did it feel? It felt right. And I think that it was important because I think it proved that, some of the things that I've been talking about the last few years, people probably think I'm crazy. But I've been doing this a very long time. I wouldn't say those things unless I thought they were true. And I've been saying for a long time that I felt she could be the best. And I'm not saying she's the best. I would absolutely say that right now she is in the discussion with the best in the world. And I think if she can do a little bit more of what she did this past weekend, then we won't need to say anything. I mean, it'll be what it is.
2 years ago, we followed her through the season, all the way through the games. I saw a different Alex, just posture wise, when I was watching WFP.
Yeah.
And so it's good to hear you say that you think that the switch has flipped.
Yeah. There's Jax. Say hi, Jax. What's up? I'm doing a show, okay? I'll see you in a little bit. I like it. It's really nice. Love you, bud.
It doesn't itch.
Barbell Spin jumping back in. Can you do both seasons if WFP adds another comp next year?
Yeah, it's a good question, Spin. I don't know. I can't worry about next year. Yeah, I know you want to know that, but I really, truly, man, I'm thinking right now about NorCal. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about getting Alex to NorCal and doing what we need to do to qualify for the games and, make sure that she performs optimally and does her best there. I'll let the pundits, I'll let you guys argue about that stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. But I certainly think that, we'll deal with that when the time comes. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I'm assuming next year you would sit down with Alex and you would look at the season again, see where everything lines up, and have 100% to make the decisions as to what's best for her at that point.
Yeah, I think for you think about the athlete window being as short as it is, right? And I think for us, I think the thing that's the most important for us right now is to be as present as possible and to look at things from that perspective. Like our goals are obviously very lofty, but I think the key right now is we have things that we know we need to continue to get better at. And that's the most important thing to her. The most important thing to her is being the best athlete that she can possibly be. And whatever stage we're able to present that on, I'm obviously, will feel very grateful for whatever stage that is. But I think, for this season, we have our plan and we know what we're going to do. And so our focus is obviously on, each day of training and then obviously each event as they come up. And I think to look beyond that, I don't think that that's the way for her to be the most successful.
If it's not discussed beforehand, we are setting ourselves up for a big problem next year. But is that your issue as a coach, or is that Will and Saxon and to get the input needed to do the right thing?
Yeah, I think that's a question that can be discussed, but we're talking about right now in relation to Alex. So when I'm looking at it from a perspective of Alex and what's best for her right now is just focusing on this season. Next season, I don't know. I mean, I'm not privy to all those discussions. I'm not in the room when CrossFit's discussing their season or who they might possibly be selling to or, what that's going to look like. And I'm not privy to discussion of what WFP wants to do, whether it's adding another event, whether it's, mandating that you've got to pick between the two. I don't know. my ideal situation would ultimately be for the two sides to be able to work together, and for us to be able to, create a season that has these multiple phenomenal events. Again, that might be a pie in the sky view, but that would be my hope. My hope is that, we're able to create a season that kind of intertwines, all these fantastic events, whether it's WFP, Rogue, Wadapalooza, the games. These are all phenomenal opportunities for athletes, coaches, and fans to be able to for the athletes to compete, for the coaches to coach, and for the fans to be able to watch these unbelievable athletes. And that for me would be the ideal situation. I don't know, between the two, I have absolutely no idea what the plan is. And I'm sure that we'll learn, I think anything right now is kind of speculation, but ultimately, if we learn that you've got to choose between the two, I think that, then I'll have to really sit down and think about, that discussion. But as of right now, I think right now it's just speculation.
So I want to talk about your other athlete that was at the WFP, and that's Manon.
Yeah.
The weekend didn't go as well for her as it did for Alex.
Yeah.
And she has yet to qualify for the games as well. So and I have said, like, all along the season, the European athletes really got a screw job with the schedule.
Yes.
So
Tough.
do you have a plan for Manon going forward? Now she's a signed athlete, correct?
Yes.
So she gets Tour Stop 2 in Copenhagen.
Yes.
But is there a way for her to qualify for the games still?
It looks like it'll be through Last Chance Qualifier. She did try to qualify through Mayhem and came in 5th, obviously did extremely well, but did not qualify. And then she tried to do online semis. It was a really challenging situation for her. Nobody will, know this and whatnot. But I mean, with she doesn't have, so the gym she works out at's not an affiliate. So she had to go and do it a couple hours away from her home in Belgium. And she had to do 3 workouts the first day and 2 workouts the second. So she did it in 2 days. She didn't have any time to do redos because it's not her gym. And that was just the schedule. So that, unfortunately it wasn't an optimal situation. And then obviously she traveled, the day after to come to WFP. So I think she was pretty beat up from online semis and travel at WFP. I actually think that the best day for her was day 3, where she kind of felt like she was getting used to the time change and also just the recovery from online semis. But yeah, I think, she was obviously, disappointed, I think, in just unfortunately the way the schedule happened. But we had to do online semis because she wants to qualify for the games. And so that was her chance, Last Chance Qualifier, I guess. I really still need to look at it deeper and to fully understand it. It looked like there were a lot of parameters there, so I'll take a look at that and see, if she qualifies for it, but that would be, obviously something that we'll do. She is very, I think her priority is Rogue, to be honest. Like that, she loves that competition more than any. So that's kind of the one that we've circled as far as priority is concerned. But obviously, the goal is to be able to make the games, obviously, and qualify for Rogue while she's doing the WFP. So, but for sure, I think the first weekend did not go as planned. I think she was irritated. We talked about it afterwards, and I think you'll see a better version of her in Mesa.
So I don't mean to dive down this path, but we have this CrossFit Games season. We talked about how, Europe was pretty much everything was in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You either make it then or you don't make it at all.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that we're adding back the regional aspect to some, but not all.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're getting the best 30 athletes to the games.
No, we aren't. I also have a problem with like the fact that you can compete just continue to do these, you go to semi after semi after semi after semi, and then the semis are now opening it up for everyone, and anyone who finished, if you missed it by 10 spots, 20 spots, you can now come there. It's just like, what are we doing? Like, it's driving me insane, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think that the way that the season is set up is optimal. And I think it's confusing. I think it's confusing the fans. I think it's confusing the athletes. Now Last Chance comes out, and I still don't quite get it, but it is what it is. So,
and they're not true semifinals because you're allowing people to participate that aren't participating in the season. So then you have leaderboard scores all messed up because someone is taking these points away.
Yeah.
And depending on their strength and your strength, that could hurt you, help you.
Of course. Yeah.
It's making it all such a mess.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we said at the front of the end. I want someone to compete with CrossFit so that they do better.
Yeah. I don't know that that's the thing, though. I don't know that competing with CrossFit is going to make them do better. I think, unfortunately,
you're gonna have to make a choice.
Yeah, I just don't understand. And obviously a lot of it revolves around money, right? I mean, like, we don't have what we've had historically because of that. I understand that. I don't know, man. I don't know what the perfect solution is, but I can tell you that this season is just a bit of a mess when you look at it, and the fact that people can qualify from 3-4 different competitions, and then the Last Chance, and then online, and people are doing Isabel 100 times. I mean, it's just wild to me. You're going to have people doing Isabel 4 times. I mean, does anybody really want to watch that shit 4 times? It was really cool at Mayhem. Just have it be at Mayhem. Like, that's all it needed to be. Just let Mayhem be the one. You didn't need to do if you're going to let people compete at multiple weekends, don't have a repeat workout. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's just things that you just, you shake your head at, but listen, at the end of the day, like, it's a huge deal to make the CrossFit Games. It's a huge deal to compete at the CrossFit Games. It's a huge deal to be able to say you're a CrossFit Games athlete. I mean, that means something, and it still means something. And at the end of the day, like, I just feel like the qualification to get there right now it's not as prestigious as it should be. Like, it should be really hard. You shouldn't have 5 shots to do it. You know what I mean? You should be able to go from this place to this place to this place to this place, chasing a game spot. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous.
If you're going to allow that, then let's go all the way back to 2019 and have 30 different options, so everybody has 3 or 4 shots.
Right. Yes.
Like, don't have it like just a handful, and then people can do all of them. That could go on forever, but
we could, but listen, at the end of the day, I mean, I think we'll still get, the best athletes, or at least the ones who competed in the season. Cause obviously there are a few that aren't competing that, are arguably, top 3, top 4. But I think besides that, we'll still get, a phenomenal show. We'll still get a great test of fitness. I think a lot of people will say last year's games was, obviously last year's games was a tragedy, but beyond that, I just thought the programming was terrible. And I'm hoping that, this year we'll get, a more kind of normal programming, and a normal event, and where we can come off of that and say, okay, we feel good about that situation. But yeah, I think leading up to it right now is a bit of a mess for sure. And anyone who says it's not is just kind of lying to themselves or drinking the punch, and they don't want to, they don't really want to be honest with themselves.
Well, I've kept you long enough tonight, Justin. I want to thank you so much for jumping on with me and giving us a little behind the scenes of how it went at WFP this weekend. I know there's a lot of curious people out there. And congratulations on getting the win. That's got to feel really good going into the rest of the season.
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Scott. It's always a pleasure, man.
Well, with that, guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being in chat. We'll catch everybody next time on the Clydesdale Media Podcast. Bye, guys.